Today, 18 Chicago Public High School students made their filmmaking debut, red carpet treatment included. 4 student teams from Curie High School, Hyde Park, and Juarez Community Academies and Phoenix Military School took part in a special district project called Shifting Chicago Naratives.
They were so eloquent. They talked deeply about their feelings, how the pandemic infected them, but then also how they rose above all of that.
Those were the only instructions. Project leaders say the topics and stories were all up to them.
This was just the opportunity for youth voice to be elevated.
Pandemic affected me, and it made me really appreciate my time.
Natorian Johnson from Curie High School and his team's film featured the creation of a new club.
Evolution is really about how robotics started, but it's even more than that. It's really about cultivating different mindsets,
while also tackling mental health issues and changes to activity school funding.
My true inspiration is that really allowing students, especially coming from predominantly black and brown neighborhoods, to have the opportunity.
What it was like growing up in a warline area was tough.
The Hyde Park Academy team took on the tough issue of violence and trauma through the eyes of Michaela Turner's family's tragic loss.
My story was about my father, Michael Turner. He was shot and killed December 13th, 2014.
The film followed Michaela's 16-year-old self confronting her 6-year-old memories and the path from grief to gratitude.
It touches me a lot because I know that, I wanted my father to always see who I was becoming as a woman.
Kate Kogirin, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
What it was like growing up in a warline area was tough because you never know what dangers lurked around the corner.
You can't just sit on your porch, or you can't just go to the park without something happening or something that could happen. That's just not how it should be, especially because we live here.
My name is Michaela Turner. People call me Kayla, Michaela. I'm 16 years old and I go to Hyde Park Academy. My father, Michael Turner, was shot and killed on the 700 block of 67th on the south side of Chicago. And he was going outside to go get some pool sticks from out of his minivan, and that's when he got shot 8 times in his back. I honestly don't know why my father, Michael Turner, was killed, but I assume and everybody thinks that it was personal because he was shot 8 times in the back.
She didn't really understand or register what was going on. She just knew that her dad was gone. Over the years, watching her become a teenager, which she's a teenager now, I noticed that she's became more evolved.
I'm blessed to really have met my mentor, Aisha Oliver, and she's actually the founder of her foundation, Root to Fruit. Aisha helped me through my trauma because I remember one day we actually had a brunch, and I learned that I wasn't the only person that went through trauma at a young age. We started to trust her, and everything that we were talking about at the brunch, we got emotional. I know I got emotional about some things, and it just really got me because a lot of us have had trauma, and some of us have experienced gun violence, and I knew I wasn't alone.
I also noticed that she became a lot more active than what she was when her father first passed away.
Aisha is a leader in her community through Root to Fruit Foundation. Seeing her motivated me to be a leader in my community, and that's why I have joined Root to Fruit Foundation and her Girls Club. I have joined Obama Foundation and Student Council at Hyde Park Academy.
Yes, she was this child that was so much to herself, but over the years, they also noticed that she flourished.
I don't want students to be alone. That's why I joined Student Council to create support groups.
What can make Chicago a better place is participation, and what I mean by participation is children and youth actually participating in clubs and groups and anything like that so they can be preoccupied, because when you're not preoccupied, you can be a victim of gang violence or a victim of depression, because if you just don't want to do anything and try to stay in the house all day, you can be influenced to do anything.
I think being in extra programs and extra activities, it really helps you get a different perspective on the world.
Even though our young people go through so many different types of trauma back to back in these communities, they really show a great amount of resilience. And that's why programs like this, Shifting Chicago Narratives, and any program that allows students to tell their story in their own voice creates real power.
I am Michaela Turner, and this is my story. I challenge you to do something to make your community a better place for everyone.
it's like a whole different world we had to go through, you know? It's so different how, like, our lives just, like, changed, you know? Like, within the course of, like, 3 years. We can't do the same things we once did before. And it's like, okay, now we have to, like, stick with this and do this.
One of the problems that I had faced during the pandemic was my issue of feeling like I had become dissociated with the world that I had lived in, with a lot of isolationism, and I had reflected on a lot of experiences that haven't really been the best for me or haven't really impacted me in the best way throughout my life.
I've noticed that I become more socially awkward. It is hard for me to talk still, but I've always been like that. But now if I'm talking to someone without the mask, I get insecure and I cover my face.
I had to learn anything about myself.
Since we were quarantined for so long, you kind of lose track of time.
I definitely have moments where I'm in school and I can't focus on my work due to the lack of social skills.
During online, I felt as if it didn't require my full potential as long as I got a decent grade.
Before the pandemic, I was able to just walk up to people and talk to them. But after, it's just a little weird, I don't know.
Because I have less people to talk to in person and it's harder to socialize through social media and stuff.
It was really difficult concentrating while being at home. And, well, family doesn't always understand that.
Right when COVID started, I was like frozen. Like I could not do anything. Like it felt as if my whole life stopped.
We were struggling with our social interaction after COVID because it's like we were just like all trapped in our houses.
I'm more like social aware of topics, how things are. I kind of, after the whole George Floyd thing happened during quarantine, it really like shook me up into my core. Like I started like learning more, just started gaining more knowledge on the topics.
Well, as you know, the murder of George Floyd did happen. Protesting, including a lot of things happened. What was your reactions or thoughts to the whole situation?
I feel like, in general, like the whole situation, I found that, like, it's not fair for certain ethnicities, especially Black people in general, because they get treated poorly compared to other ethnicities. Like,
so after the events, I definitely wanted like more justice.
George Floyd kept saying that he couldn't breathe, that he continued to put his knee on his neck, which was draining the oxygen out of him, and it led up to the riots, the protests,
and I support the rioting and the protests because people were angry, and I was also angry, and he should have not been murdered.
Great. Okay, thank you. So when you think of Black and brown community, like, what do you think of?
I think about like people of color, like it can be like from Latin people to African American descent. I think of all those people, and I think like there should be more representation around them on them.
I think of strength. I think of courage. I think of really like pushing down the boundaries.
How I view myself, and I feel like I need to start taking charge.
Solidarity, because we show up for each other.
I think of everyone being together as one union and everybody getting along.
I think of the efforts of people that I know in Little Village in North Lawndale. So I think of a lot of different people that I know that are currently like trying to make that happen.
I think that I learned that my voice has power. You know what? I can actually make a difference. Like I can actually do something. And so what better way to do something with my voice than to actually try photography and film? Let me put my words into a picture or a video. And if I can do that, maybe it can change for something. So yeah.
I think I learned how to like work together more with people. And I also learned a little bit about myself. I also get scared, but I get scared asking questions rather than speaking and answering. So which is like, that's kind of odd for me. And I also learned, you know, just more about film. Even though I've had previous experiences, I think that this was like my first more professional experience. So
seeing the other side of the story of how other people dealt with COVID really taught me that
how actually big this pandemic was to the world.
I noticed that a lot of people really do support Black and Brown unity, which is our topic.
I've learned about myself and others that we're all more incredibly resilient than we think we are. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit, but I think truthfully, no matter what mental block you have or what you may be going through, I think we all have the capability to get through it, and we are, like I said, more resilient than we think we are.
Pandemic affected me, and it made me really appreciate my time because like you can't take it for granted.
Doing the remote learning, at the time I didn't like really feel it was like school.
But once we got to hybrid, it started easing my mind about what's going to happen in the future.
I knew Notorian from freshman year. He'd really changed. I almost didn't recognize him. That was just the time when our internship program was developing.
This was something I had never done before in my life, you know?
And then when I was in training over the summer, he was in the internship, and we were in the same room. Just he was doing one thing and I was doing another.
He learned so much stuff over the summer. He's like, maybe we could bring this to our school.
And one day he just asked me very calmly, would you be interested in starting a robotics club? I said, okay, yes, we'll run with it. We'll learn it together. We'll recruit a few more people. But I couldn't say no.
So when he was talking about the robotics club, the idea of making something and having it succeed is crazy to me.
Angelino told me, so when he brought it up, I wanted to be a mechanic, so I saw robotics as a way to do something like that.
Since I started, I learned leadership because like as a leader to the team is that I have to show the other students.
The robots that we're currently working on is Bumblebee actually. It's our competition robot. Right now we have a claw. It's able to move up, down, it's able to go all the way back.
You know, it's something new. We didn't really have that. We used to have like sports and like we didn't have nothing like robotics. So when he told me about robotics, I was excited.
When I first heard that Kiri had won the Judges Award at the First Tech Robotics,
it was surprising because there were so many other robots that had like different components that we didn't have.
To see how far they had come and that it was acknowledged.
The way Sol had described our robot and how we actually put it together, how we looked at different machines.
There were teams there that, you know, were so far above what we could ever be our first year. The spirit and the grit of the team shone through.
And as an instructor, I think it's our responsibility to help them find themselves.
You yourself have to make the decision to
persevere through whatever you're going through.
Doc's like an amazing mentor. Sometimes you need a person as guidance and like for them to be there for you.
And to say, hey, I'm learning with you.
Just like the students need mentors, I needed mentors. Dr. Allure, Mr. Anaya.
And so really cultivating a different mindset is a really big piece. And making sure that everybody's involved to make these things happen.
The most prestigious award in FIRST is the Inspire Award. Having the kids realize that that's actually more important than building a robot that scores points, and building a community of learners so that the kids can build something better in the future.
Hey, we're from Kiri, and we want to thank you for allowing us to do this amazing project. And we need more projects like this for the youth. Thank you.
Something that I learned from this experience is that at the end of the day, everyone struggled from the pandemic, but they all had different challenges that they went through and experienced.
What I learned from this experience is that you shouldn't compare yourself to somebody else's struggle, because at the end of the day,
Like, we all struggling with something. Like, I could be struggling with something right now, and you never know until it's too late. And that's why you should, like, check in on your peeps,
What I saw throughout this experience was people's emotions and the challenges they went through and how it affected them mentally and physically.
Before filming, I expected all of the people we were going to interview to have relatively the same responses because I thought, everyone went through the same thing. I would expect everyone to have like kind of the same outlook over everything.
What I saw throughout the experience of like people is the regrets they have, like what they didn't do before COVID. And there's also people that like talk about like missing some stuff that they really like want to go back to.
I would use the word social to describe our lives before the pandemic because we didn't have to stay 6 feet apart from anybody.
Peaceful.
Elaborate that, please.
It was way better, probably before 2020. It was a little bit not crazy things going around the world and just pretty normal.
One word I would use to describe life before COVID would probably be active. The reason I would say active is because before COVID, life was very productive. What I mean by that is like people were in school, people were in work, and people were in sports. And then COVID happened and everyone had to adjust to that and stop doing things they would do every day and learn to be by themselves and be isolated, which I know was hard for a lot of people.
I would say a word to describe life before the pandemic hit was easy. It wasn't so tough as it is now. Waking up on time, a lot of people's schedules were changed, and it was hard for people to adjust to the scheduling for COVID.
Honestly, socializing. No matter how introverted I am, I do like to talk to people. I like to say that I'm pretty poised when I do talk. I always have something to say. I can never stay quiet. So I usually, within the pandemic, I would talk to myself. And now that I don't have to be in the pandemic, I talk to everyone as much as I can.
For me, I'd say healthy and active. Because I was just involved in everything at school. Like I did football and wrestling.
One word to describe my life before the pandemic hit would be comical because during the pandemic, I feel like I went into a state of boredom because I'm not a sheltered indoor type person. I want to go out and do things, and because of COVID, we couldn't do anything really.
Happy.
Why happy?
I would go outside a bunch, honestly. I would hang out with my friends. I would go to the park. We would just play basketball, just hang outside.
What's our after question that we chose?
I think that one. Something you value now that you didn't value before the pandemic. Now that's a deep one.
Something I value now that I probably didn't value before the pandemic was, socialization, because during the pandemic, it was kind of hard to socialize. It was kind of hard to, get together with your family and friends. So I think now I wouldn't take that for granted as much as I would 2.5 years ago.
It would have to be time. I value time very much, a lot more, because I value the time I can have with my friends and stuff like that, and being able to go out with them.
I think I really value just being able to see my friends all the time, because during the pandemic it was kind of like I just didn't see them at all. I wasn't able to be around them because of COVID scares, so I think that's...
Probably my friend Scott, because I didn't get to see him during the school day and he kept me, company. He was like a really close friend and it felt kind of sad without him during the day, so yeah.
Just being a better person during these times.
Spending time with my family and trying not to get people sick.
Be going outside. My freedom.
Your freedom? What do you mean by freedom?
Just being outside, bro.
The most important thing I value now that I didn't value as much before the pandemic is LIFE, life.
And why would you say that?
I say that because not only did I bring a life into this world during the pandemic, but I saw people lose their lives. People that I knew and people that I didn't know. So the most important thing I value, and I believe anybody else should value, is life.
Life. I feel like before the pandemic, a lot of people didn't really treat life how they're supposed to treat it. And ever since the pandemic, a lot of people suffered from COVID. So they seen that any day you can pass away or die. And I feel like I took life for granted. I act like I didn't care, but now I care a lot.
Some expectations before I filmed was like, I thought people were going to be like fast and short, simple. But when I was recording people, I felt like they got into depth of like the COVID awareness during COVID and before COVID. And I really felt like it was kind of inspiring to me, since like people had their own issues and things they learned throughout COVID.
We came together as a community, so this project really helped us, I guess, like see COVID through a different lens.